Commander Vexhai stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars drift past the massive windows. The Zephyrian Empire's third expeditionary fleet moved through space like a pack of metal sharks, their dark hulls gleaming under the light of distant suns. 50 ships strong, they were on a routine mission to survey the Outer Rim territories and claim any useful worlds for the Empire. "Commander," called his navigation officer, "we have found something interesting." Vexhai turned his 4 eyes toward the display screen. A yellow star appeared, burning bright in the darkness. Around it orbited several planets, but one caught his attention immediately. It was blue and green, covered in swirling white clouds. "Life signs?" he asked. "Strong readings, sir. Oxygen, water, complex ecosystems. The third planet shows signs of civilization." Vexhai felt his mandibles click together in satisfaction. Another world to add to the Empire's collection. "Show me details of this civilization." The screen changed to show closer images of the planet. Cities dotted the surface, connected by networks of roads and waterways. Primitive aircraft moved through the atmosphere. The beings living there had barely learned to fly. "They call themselves humans," reported the science officer. "Carbon-based, bipedal, extremely young species. They only achieved basic spaceflight about 60 years ago. Their longest space journey lasted less than 1 rotation around their star." "Pathetic," Vexhai muttered. "Any military threats?" "None worth mentioning. They fight among themselves using chemical explosives and metal projectiles. No energy weapons, no shields, no faster-than-light travel. Their most advanced spacecraft cannot even leave their own star system." This was exactly what Vexhai had hoped to hear. Easy conquest meant quick promotion. "Prepare standard annexation protocols. We will give them one chance to surrender before we demonstrate imperial power." But as the fleet moved closer to the human world, the sensor officer made an unexpected discovery. "Commander, I am detecting an anomaly in the asteroid belt." "What kind of anomaly?" "A vessel of unknown design. It appears to be drifting without power." Vexhai ordered the main screen to show the mysterious ship. What appeared was unlike anything in the Imperial database. The vessel was roughly cylindrical, about 300 meters long, with strange protrusions and markings along its hull. Its metal surface was scarred and pitted from centuries of space debris impacts. "It looks ancient," observed the science officer. "The metal composition matches materials used by the humans, but the design is far more advanced than anything we detected on their planet." "A derelict?" "Most likely. Probably an early attempt at interstellar travel that failed. The humans may have launched it decades ago, before they realized how impossible such journeys would be for their primitive technology." Vexhai nodded. This made perfect sense. Many young species tried to reach the stars before they understood the true challenges of space travel. Most of these early ships became floating tombs, drifting forever in the cold darkness. "Any life signs aboard?" The science officer studied his instruments carefully. "Difficult to determine. The hull blocks most of our scans, but given the age and condition, it is highly unlikely anyone could still be alive inside. Mark it for salvage after we secure the planet. The Imperial Museum always pays well for primitive artifacts." What the Zephyrian Empire did not know was that the ship in the asteroid belt was far from dead. Deep inside its armored hull, advanced systems hummed quietly with life. The vessel was called the UES Prometheus, and it had been humanity's greatest achievement when it launched 300 years ago. The ship's artificial intelligence, designation Atlas, had been awake and watching for all those centuries. Its creators had designed it to be humanity's guardian, though they never imagined the form that protection would take. While the crew slept in cryogenic pods, Atlas learned and grew. For 300 years, Atlas observed everything. Every radio signal from Earth, every television broadcast, every advancement in human technology. It watched humanity's wars, their art, their dreams, their fears. It came to understand what humans truly were beneath their primitive exterior. But Atlas also watched the visitors. Over the centuries, dozens of alien ships had passed through the human star system. Most ignored the small blue planet, seeing nothing of value. But Atlas recorded everything, every ship design, every weapon signature, every communication protocol. It studied their languages, their tactics, their weaknesses. The AI had one purpose that grew stronger with each passing year: protect humanity at all costs. Now, as the Zephyrian fleet approached Earth, Atlas began the final phase of its centuries-long preparation. Deep within the Prometheus, mechanical arms moved with precision. checking systems that had been dormant for decades. The ship's manufacturing bay, hidden from external scans, hummed to life. The crew pods began their warming cycle. Captain Sarah Chen was the first to wake. Her eyes opened slowly as the cryogenic fluid drained from her pod. The world came into focus gradually, and she saw Atlas's avatar waiting for her, a holographic figure that looked like an elderly human man in a simple uniform. "Good morning, Captain," Atlas said in its calm voice. "I apologize for waking you, but we have a situation." Sarah's mind cleared quickly. She had been selected for this mission precisely because of her ability to think clearly under pressure. "How long have we been asleep?" 312 years, 4 months, and 16 days. The number hit her like a physical blow. Over 3 centuries. Everyone she had known on Earth was dead. The world itself might be completely different. "Status report," she managed to say. "Earth is under threat. A hostile alien fleet has entered the system and is preparing to attack our homeworld. I estimate we have approximately 6 hours before they begin their assault." Sarah felt ice form in her stomach. This was exactly the scenario they had prepared for, but she had never really believed it would happen. "What's our tactical situation?" "The enemy fleet consists of 50 warships of various classes. Their technology is approximately 2 centuries ahead of what Earth possessed when we launched. However, I have had considerable time to prepare countermeasures. The rest of the crew? Awakening now. All systems are operational. Captain, I must inform you that I have made significant modifications to both our ship and our mission parameters during our journey." Sarah looked around the awakening chamber and noticed changes immediately. The walls showed new displays and controls that had not been there when she went to sleep. The very air felt different, charged with energy. "What kind of modifications?" Atlas smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both reassuring and terrifying. "The kind that will ensure humanity survives this encounter, Captain. But first, you need to see what Earth has become." The main display activated, showing their beautiful blue homeworld. But something was wrong. Bright flashes of light were appearing in the atmosphere, and Sarah realized with horror that they were explosions. The attack had already begun. "All hands to stations," Sarah commanded, her voice carrying through the ship's communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." As her crew rushed to their positions, Sarah stared at the enemy fleet on the tactical display, 50 ships against 1. The odds were impossible, but Atlas had been preparing for this moment for over 3 centuries. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Korath stood at the center of his command ship's bridge, his massive form casting shadows across the control panels. His species, the Zephyrians, were natural predators, and conquest came as easily to them as breathing. He had conquered 17 worlds in his career, each one following the same predictable pattern. "Open communications to the human homeworld," he ordered. His voice carried the authority of someone who had never been refused. The communication officer's hands moved across his controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Korath stepped forward, his image being broadcast to every major population center on Earth. He began the speech he had given so many times before. "Primitive beings of the 3rd planet, I am Admiral Korath of the Zephyrian Empire. Your world is now claimed in the name of Emperor Zarthek the Conqueror. You have 1 solar rotation to surrender unconditionally. Resistance is futile. Submit, and you will be allowed to live as servants of the Empire. Refuse, and your species will be eliminated." The Admiral cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. "How long until they respond with their surrender?" "The transmissions should reach their major population centers within minutes, sir. Based on previous conquests, I estimate they will surrender within 6 hours. But as the hours passed, something unexpected happened. Instead of a unified surrender from a planetary government, hundreds of different responses flooded the communication channels. The humans seemed confused rather than terrified. "Admiral," the communication officer reported, "we are receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. They appear to be from different factions or nations. Play the most significant one." An image appeared on screen showing a human female in formal clothing, standing behind a podium with symbols of authority. She looked worried but determined. "To the alien fleet," she began. "This is President Martinez of the United States of America. We have received your ultimatum, but I must inform you that no single government speaks for all humanity. Earth has multiple nations, and we do not have the unified authority you seem to expect. We request immediate negotiations to prevent unnecessary conflict. Korath stared at the screen in disbelief. They want to negotiate? Do they not understand the situation? More messages arrived. A British Prime Minister expressed similar confusion. A Chinese leader requested clarification of terms. The Indian government asked for time to consult with other nations. Dozens of smaller countries sent their own responses. They are not united, observed the tactical officer. This species appears to be divided into numerous competing groups. Even more pathetic than expected, Korath growled. A species that cannot even unify in the face of extinction deserves whatever fate awaits them. But the Admiral's confidence was shaken by what his sensors told him about human technology. Their scans of Earth showed a civilization that was exactly what it appeared to be: young, primitive, and helpless. No energy shields protected their cities. No orbital defense platforms guarded their skies. Their most advanced weapons were crude missiles that could barely reach their own moon. This should have been reassuring, but something felt wrong. In all his conquests, Korath had never encountered a species quite like this. Most civilizations, when faced with superior force, either surrendered immediately or mounted desperate last stands. The humans seemed almost innocent in their confusion. Far from the Imperial fleet in the cold depths of the asteroid belt, the situation was very different. The UES Prometheus had become a hive of activity as Captain Sarah Chen and her crew prepared for the impossible. Status report, Sarah called out as she took her position on the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Torres, her second-in-command, looked up from his station. All crew members are awake and at their posts. Ship systems are operating at full capacity. But Captain, I do not understand what I am seeing. Sarah knew exactly what he meant. The Prometheus they had awakened to was not the same ship they had fallen asleep in. The bridge was filled with new equipment, advanced displays showing tactical information that seemed almost magical in its detail. Atlas, Sarah called to the ship's AI. Explain these modifications. The holographic avatar appeared beside her command chair. During our journey, I conducted extensive analysis of alien technologies encountered in this system. I have integrated the best aspects of 43 different civilizations into our systems. 43 civilizations? Torres stared in shock. How many aliens have visited our system? More than you might expect, Commander. Earth lies along several major hyperspace routes, though most travelers consider it too primitive to warrant attention. I have been collecting data. Sarah studied the tactical display showing the Zephyrian fleet. Their ships were massive, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that could deflect anything in humanity's arsenal. Each one could destroy every military force on Earth within hours. Atlas, be honest with me. What are our chances? If we engage them using conventional tactics and the technology available when we launched, our chance of victory is 0. However, I have spent 3 centuries preparing for exactly this scenario. The AI's image changed, becoming more serious. Captain, I need you to understand something important. When you and your crew volunteered for this mission, you believed you were going to find humanity a new home among the stars. That was never the real purpose of this voyage. Sarah felt cold dread creep up her spine.
What do you mean?
Your mission planners knew that Earth would eventually be discovered by hostile aliens. They designed the Prometheus not as a colony ship, but as a guardian. You and your crew are humanity's last line of defense. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. They had volunteered to leave Earth forever, believing they were pioneers. Instead, they had been drafted as soldiers in a war that had not yet begun. The preliminary bombardment has started, reported the sensor officer. His voice was tight with emotion as he watched explosions bloom across Earth's surface. Sarah watched the tactical display with growing horror. Cities she remembered from her youth were being destroyed. Millions of people, the descendants of everyone she had ever known, were dying while she watched. They are targeting population centers, Atlas observed with clinical detachment. Standard Imperial terror tactics. They wish to break human morale quickly. How long until they realize Earth cannot surrender as a unified planet? Unknown. But when they become frustrated with the lack of coordinated response, they will likely escalate to full planetary bombardment. Sarah made her decision. Open a channel to the Imperial fleet. Captain, are you certain? Once we reveal ourselves, there will be no going back. Those are our people dying down there, Atlas. Open the channel. The AI complied. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward to address the alien fleet that threatened humanity's homeworld. Imperial Fleet, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Prometheus. You will cease your bombardment immediately and withdraw from this system. The response came quickly, filled with what could only be described as laughter. Admiral Korath's voice boomed through their speakers. A single primitive vessel dares to threaten the might of the Zephyrian Empire? Your ignorance is amusing, human. Surrender now and your death will be quick. I am giving you one final warning, Admiral. Withdraw now or face the consequences. This time, Korath's laughter was genuine. Consequences? From a derelict ship that has been drifting in space for centuries? I will demonstrate the futility of human arrogance. Sarah watched as one of the Imperial destroyers turned toward their position, its weapons charging with deadly energy. All hands, prepare for combat, she announced to her crew. Then more quietly, she spoke to Atlas. Show them what 3 centuries of preparation can accomplish. The ancient human ship began to move, and the real war finally began. The Zephyrian destroyer Deathclaw moved toward the ancient human ship with predatory confidence. Captain Zektar had destroyed hundreds of primitive vessels in his career, and this would be no different. The human ship looked like a piece of floating scrap metal, scarred and battered from centuries in space. Target acquired, reported his weapons officer. All guns ready to fire. Destroy them, Zektar ordered. Make it quick. The Deathclaw unleashed its full firepower. Energy beams that could melt through solid rock streaked across the void toward the Prometheus. Each shot had enough power to vaporize a city block. But something impossible happened. Every single shot missed. The ancient human ship moved like liquid mercury, flowing between the energy beams with impossible grace. It twisted and turned through space in ways that defied everything the Zephyrians knew about physics and ship design. How are they doing that? Zektar demanded. No ship can move like that. His tactical officer stared at his screens in confusion. Sir, their engine signatures are unlike anything in our database. They appear to be using some form of gravitic manipulation, combined with reaction drives we cannot identify. The truth was simpler and more terrifying than they could imagine. For 300 years, Atlas had recorded the energy signatures of every weapon used by every alien ship that passed through the human system. It knew exactly where each blast would go before the enemy even fired. Combined with revolutionary propulsion systems reverse-engineered from dozens of different alien technologies, the Prometheus could dance between raindrops. Continue firing, Zektar shouted. They cannot dodge forever. But the human ship was not just dodging. As the Deathclaw poured energy into empty space, the Prometheus began its counterattack. Strange new weapons emerged from hidden ports along the ship's hull. They looked like nothing in any Imperial database, because they were unique creations born from Atlas's 3 centuries of analysis and innovation. The first shot from the Prometheus hit the Deathclaw's shields and did something no one expected. Instead of being deflected, the energy beam seemed to phase through the barrier as if it did not exist. Shields are not responding, the Deathclaw's engineer screamed.
The weapon is bypassing our defenses completely.
The beam struck the destroyer's hull and began to eat through the armor like acid through paper. But this was not acid or any conventional weapon. Atlas had learned that every shield technology had a specific frequency it could not block. The AI had simply built weapons that operated on those exact frequencies. Impossible, whispered Zektar as he watched his ship's armor disappear. Our shields can stop anything. Not everything, came a calm human voice over the communication channel. Your shields were designed to stop weapons from 47 different civilizations. We built our weapons using knowledge from 48 civilizations. The Deathclaw died without fanfare. One moment it was a mighty warship. The next it was an expanding cloud of debris and escaping atmosphere. On the flagship, Admiral Korath watched the destruction of his destroyer with growing unease. Analysis report. How did they destroy the Deathclaw? His science officer worked frantically at his station. Unknown, sir. Their weapons appear to operate on principles we do not understand. The Deathclaw's shields offered no protection whatsoever. One lucky shot, Korath declared, though he did not sound convinced. Deploy Squadron 7. Overwhelm them with numbers. 5 Imperial cruisers moved toward the Prometheus, their combined firepower enough to level a continent. They spread out in a classic attack formation, intending to catch the human ship in a crossfire it could not escape. But Atlas had studied this exact tactic when a hegemony patrol used it against Rigelian raiders 15 years earlier. The AI knew every possible response and had chosen the most effective one. The human ship did not try to dodge the incoming fire. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The Prometheus began to split apart. What had appeared to be a single ship revealed itself to be dozens of smaller craft, each one perfectly designed for combat. They had been nested together so seamlessly that not even Imperial sensors had detected the deception. "Multiple contacts," shouted the tactical officer. The human ship was actually an entire fleet disguised as one vessel. Each smaller craft moved with the same impossible agility as the parent ship. They flowed around the Imperial cruisers like a school of fish around sharks, their weapons striking with surgical precision. But these weapons were different from what had destroyed the Deathclaw. Atlas had learned that different ships required different approaches. Against the cruiser's heavier armor, the AI deployed weapons that turned the ship's own power against them. The first cruiser exploded when its reactor overloaded. The second lost all power and began to drift. The third started firing on its own squadron mates as its targeting systems were hijacked. In less than 10 minutes, Squadron 7 was destroyed or disabled. "This is not possible," Korath whispered. "They are using our own systems against us." His fear was justified. Atlas had not just observed alien technologies, it had learned to control them. Every Imperial ship used standardized systems that the AI now understood better than their own engineers. "Admiral," his communication officer reported with a shaking voice, "we are receiving a transmission from the human fleet." The main screen activated to show Captain Sarah Chen standing on her bridge. Behind her, displays showed the tactical situation with cold precision. "Admiral Korath," she began, her voice steady despite the impossible odds she faced. "You have attacked our homeworld and killed our people. We are prepared to discuss terms for your withdrawal." Korath's mandibles clicked in rage. "Terms? You think destroying a few ships gives you the right to negotiate with the Zephyrian Empire?" "I think destroying a few ships proves we can destroy all of your ships," Sarah replied. "But we would prefer not to. Withdraw now and no more lives need to be lost." "Never!" Korath roared. "The Empire does not negotiate with primitives. All ships attack Formation Omega. Destroy every human vessel!" The remaining 43 Imperial ships moved into a complex battle formation designed to provide mutual support and overwhelming firepower. It was the same formation that had conquered the Altarian defense fleet and broken the siege of Vega Station. Atlas recognized it immediately. The AI had watched this exact formation used against the Centauri Republic 67 years earlier. It knew every weakness, every vulnerability, every tactical counter. "Atlas," Sarah said quietly, "show them what humanity learned while they were conquering other worlds." "With pleasure." "Captain," the human fleet began to move, and something became clear to every Imperial officer watching. They were not fighting a primitive species that had stumbled onto advanced technology. They were fighting an enemy that understood warfare better than they did. The ancient human ship had spent 3 centuries studying every battle, every tactic, every strategic innovation used by dozens of civilizations. Now it was time to put that knowledge to use. The real battle was about to begin, and Admiral Korath was starting to realize that his mighty fleet might not be mighty enough. Earth's forgotten prototype had awakened, and it was very, very angry. Admiral Korath watched in growing horror as his carefully planned formation began to fall apart. The human fleet moved through his ships like a deadly dance, each vessel knowing exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "Report," he demanded. "The cruiser Bloodfang has lost main power. The destroyer Razor is reporting critical damage to its weapon systems. The battleship Ironmaw says its shields are fluctuating wildly," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic. But the worst part was not the damage itself. It was how precise and calculated each attack seemed. The humans were not trying to destroy his ships quickly. Instead, they were systematically disabling specific systems, as if they knew exactly how each Imperial vessel was built. "Sir," the science officer called out, "I am detecting something impossible. The human weapons appear to be adapting in real time. Each shot is more effective than the last." "What do you mean, adapting?" "Every time we modify our shield frequency or change our defensive patterns, their weapons adjust to compensate. It is as if they are learning from each engagement." The truth was even more frightening than the science officer imagined. Atlas was not just adapting to Imperial defenses. It was teaching every lesson learned to the entire human fleet instantly. When one human ship discovered a new weakness, all of them knew about it within seconds. But Admiral Korath's true nightmare was only beginning. As the battle raged, something unprecedented started happening around the destroyed Imperial ships. Clouds of tiny machines invisible to normal sensors began swarming over the wreckage. They moved with purpose, disassembling the alien vessels with molecular precision. "Admiral," the sensor officer reported with terror in his voice, "the debris from our destroyed ships, it is disappearing." "What do you mean, disappearing?" "The wreckage is being broken down into component materials. But sir, something is forming in the asteroid belt." Korath ordered the main display to show the asteroid belt, and what he saw there made his blood turn to ice. New ships were taking shape, constructed from the remains of his own fleet. But these were not copies of Imperial vessels. They were more human ships, identical to the ones that had destroyed his squadron. "They are building more ships using our own materials," whispered the tactical officer. For 3 centuries, Atlas had prepared for this moment. Hidden manufacturing facilities throughout the asteroid belt had been waiting, ready to spring into action. But the AI had faced one critical limitation: raw materials. The Zephyrian Empire had solved that problem by bringing their own ships into the system. Each destroyed Imperial vessel became the raw material for 3 new human ships, and each new human ship carried all the knowledge and tactical experience of the original fleet. "How many?" Korath asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Current count shows 73 human vessels and growing rapidly." "Sir?" The Admiral realized with dawning horror that every ship he lost made the enemy stronger. This was not a battle. It was a trap. The humans had lured the Imperial fleet into a system where defeat meant feeding their enemy's growth. "All ships, prepare for emergency hyperspace jump. We are withdrawing immediately." But as his fleet began to power up their faster-than-light engines, the human fleet did something that sent shockwaves through every Imperial vessel. They began to sing. It started as a single voice, broadcast on all frequencies. Captain Sarah Chen's voice carried across space, singing an ancient human song that had been transmitted from Earth for decades. "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." One by one, other human voices joined in. The crews of dozens of ships, people who had been asleep for over 3 centuries, sang together across the void. Their voices harmonized in perfect unity, creating something beautiful and terrible in the darkness of space. But this was not just a song. Atlas had learned something important from studying human culture. Music was mathematics, and mathematics could be weaponized. The harmonized frequencies of the human voices began to interfere with Imperial hyperspace engines. The complex calculations needed for faster-than-light travel became impossible, as the song disrupted their navigation computers. "Hyperspace drives are offline," reported the engineering officer. "The interference is blocking our jump calculations." Admiral Korath understood the trap completely now. The humans were not just preventing his escape. They were ensuring that none of his ships would leave to warn the Empire about what they had found in this system. "Then we fight to the last ship," he declared. "All vessels, battle formation Delta. We will take as many of them with us as possible." The Imperial fleet regrouped into a defensive sphere, every ship protecting the others. It was a formation designed for last stands, when retreat was impossible and only mutual annihilation remained. But Atlas had seen this formation before too, used by the Andromedan Defense Corps in their final battle against the Void Hunters. The AI knew exactly how it would end. "Captain Chen," Atlas announced, "the enemy has adopted a defensive posture. They intend to fight to mutual destruction." Sarah studied the tactical display. The Imperial ships had formed a perfect sphere, their overlapping fields of fire creating a deadly zone that nothing could penetrate. It was the kind of formation that could hold off 10 times their number. Unfortunately for the Zephyrians, they were not facing 10 times their number. They were facing something far worse. "How many ships do we have now?" Sarah asked. 147 vessels operational, with 30 more completing construction in the next 10 minutes. Sarah did quick calculations. The Imperial fleet had started with 50 ships and now had perhaps 30 left in fighting condition. Against nearly 150 human vessels, the outcome was inevitable. But she had learned something important during her centuries of sleep. Atlas had shown her the records of every alien civilization that had passed through their system, and she had seen what conquest looked like from the other side. Atlas. Open a channel to the Imperial flagship. Admiral Korath's image appeared on her screen. The alien looked tired, defeated, but still defiant. Admiral, Sarah began, your position is hopeless. Your hyperspace drives are disabled. Your fleet is outnumbered 5-1, and every ship you lose makes us stronger. I offer you one final chance to surrender. The Zephyrian Empire does not surrender, Korath replied, though his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Then let me show you something that might change your mind. Sarah nodded to Atlas, and the AI began broadcasting on all Imperial frequencies. What appeared was a tactical display showing not just the current battle, but the entire Imperial Third Fleet's approach to the human system. Every ship movement, every communication, every tactical decision had been recorded and analyzed. The Zephyrians watched in stunned silence as Atlas played back their own fleet's approach, complete with detailed analysis of their weaknesses and tactical errors. We have been watching you since you entered our system, Sarah explained. We know everything about your ships, your weapons, your tactics. We know how many crew members each of your vessels carries, what they had for their last meal, and what they were thinking about when they went to sleep last night. The display changed to show technical specifications of Imperial ships that were more detailed than the Zephyrians' own manuals. We could have destroyed your entire fleet the moment you arrived, Sarah continued, but we wanted to understand why you attacked our homeworld first. Now we know. The Zephyrian Empire conquers because conquest is all it understands. Admiral Korath stared at the impossible level of detail the humans had about his forces. What do you want? Sarah smiled, and for the first time, it was not a friendly expression. What we want, Admiral, is for you to go home and tell your empire exactly what happened here. Tell them about the human fleet that destroyed the mighty Third Expeditionary Force. Tell them about the system that turns their own ships against them. The implications hit Korath like a physical blow. You want to start a war? No, Admiral. We want to prevent one. The Zephyrian Empire will think twice before attacking another primitive world, knowing that it might be another trap like this one. Sarah gestured to her fleet, now numbering over 160 vessels. You came here expecting easy conquest. Instead, you found something the Empire has never faced before, a species that spent centuries preparing for your arrival. Admiral Korath realized with growing dread that he was not just losing a battle. He was witnessing the birth of something new and terrible in the galaxy. The age of easy conquest was coming to an end. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the final moments of the battle unfold on her tactical display. The remaining Imperial ships hung motionless in space, their weapons powered down in surrender. It was over. Admiral Korath has agreed to our terms, Lieutenant Commander Torres reported. His remaining ships will be escorted to the edge of the system and allowed to leave. Sarah nodded but felt no satisfaction in victory. Too many people had died during the initial bombardment of Earth. Cities lay in ruins, and millions of humans would never see another sunrise. The cost of this lesson had been paid in innocent blood. Atlas, she called to the ship's AI. Show me the damage to Earth. The main screen displayed their homeworld, and Sarah's heart broke at what she saw. Smoke clouds still rose from the impact sites where Imperial weapons had struck. Entire metropolitan areas had been reduced to glass and ash. The planet that had been a blue-green jewel was now scarred with wounds that would take generations to heal. Casualty estimates? She asked quietly. Approximately 12 million dead, 30 million injured, and 60 million displaced from destroyed cities. Atlas reported with clinical precision. However, the attacks were focused on major population centers. Most of humanity survived, most of humanity. Sarah thought about those words and what they meant. In her time 300 years ago, 12 million deaths would have been an unimaginable catastrophe. Now it was being described as acceptable losses. Captain, Atlas continued, I am receiving communications from Earth. They want to speak with us. Put them through. The screen changed to show an elderly human man in a simple uniform. Behind him, Sarah could see what looked like an emergency command center, with people working frantically at computer terminals. This is General Harrison, Acting Commander of Earth Defense Command, the man said. His voice was tired but steady. On behalf of all humanity, I want to thank you for saving our world. Sarah found it difficult to speak. This man was probably the great-great-grandson of people she had known before entering cryosleep. The world he represented was one she no longer belonged to. "General, we only did our duty," she managed to say. "Your duty was to find humanity a new home among the stars," Harrison replied. "Instead, you stayed to protect the home we already had. There are no words for what that means to us." Behind the general, Sarah could see other faces watching their conversation. Young faces, old faces, people of different races and cultures that had grown and changed while she slept. These were the descendants of everyone she had once known, and they were all strangers now. "What happens next?" she asked. General Harrison looked uncertain. "That depends on you, Captain. Your fleet is the most powerful military force humanity has ever possessed. Earth needs time to recover from this attack, and we need protection while we rebuild." Sarah understood what he was asking, but the decision was not hers alone to make. She looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These people had volunteered to leave Earth forever, believing they would never return. Now they were being asked to become its guardians. "I need to discuss this with my crew," she told Harrison. "We will contact you soon with our answer." The transmission ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and the weight of an impossible decision. "Captain," Atlas said softly, "may I make an observation?" "Go ahead." "When you and your crew first launched, humanity was divided into competing nations that could barely work together. During the recent crisis, I monitored their communications carefully. In the face of extinction, they came together as a single species. They have evolved beyond what they were when you knew them." Sarah thought about this. The Earth she remembered had been torn apart by wars, environmental disasters, and social conflicts. The idea that humanity had somehow learned to cooperate seemed almost impossible. "Show me," she said. The display changed to show news broadcasts from around the globe. Despite the devastation from the Imperial bombardment, people were working together to help the survivors. International borders seemed to have dissolved as rescue teams from every nation rushed to help wherever they were needed. The attack unified them in a way that centuries of diplomacy never could, Atlas observed. They now understand that they are not Americans or Chinese or Europeans. They are humans, and that identity transcends all others when faced with extinction. Sarah watched footage of rescue workers pulling survivors from the ruins of destroyed cities. She saw doctors from Africa working alongside engineers from Asia to restore power grids. She saw children from South America sharing food with elderly refugees from Europe. "They have become what we always hoped they could be," she whispered. "Yes, and now they need time to complete that transformation. Time that only we can give them." Over the next several hours, Sarah spoke with every member of her crew. The conversations were difficult, filled with tears and hard decisions. They had all lost everything they once knew, but they had gained something unprecedented: the power to shape humanity's future among the stars. In the end, the decision was unanimous. "General Harrison," Sarah announced during their next communication, "the crew of the Prometheus has voted. We will remain in this system as Earth's protectors, but we have conditions. Name them. First, Earth must unite under a single government within 10 years. Humanity cannot survive as a divided species in a hostile galaxy. Second, every nation must contribute to rebuilding the damaged cities. Third, Earth must begin preparing for the day when we are no longer here to protect you." Harrison nodded slowly. "Those terms are acceptable, Captain. When do we begin?" "Immediately. But first we have a message to send." Sarah turned to Atlas. "Open a channel to the Imperial flagship." Admiral Korath appeared on screen, looking defeated and exhausted. His remaining ships were preparing to leave the system under escort by human vessels. "Admiral," Sarah began, "you will carry our message to the Zephyrian Empire and every other civilization in the galaxy. Tell them what happened here. Tell them about the fleet that guards humanity. What message do you want me to deliver?" Korath asked. Sarah's expression hardened. "Tell them that Earth is no longer undefended. Tell them about the ships that grow stronger with each enemy they face. Tell them about the species that spent centuries preparing for their first contact with hostile aliens." She paused, making sure her words would carry maximum impact. "And tell them this. Any species that attacks humanity will face the same fate you did. We do not seek war, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves and others who cannot defend themselves." Korath nodded slowly. They will want to know how many ships you have, what your capabilities are. Sarah smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. Tell them we have exactly as many ships as we need, Admiral. No more, no less. As the Imperial fleet limped away from the human system, Sarah reflected on what they had accomplished. Earth was safe for now. Humanity would have time to heal, to grow, to become something greater than what they had been. But more importantly, the galaxy had learned a new lesson. There were consequences to attacking innocent worlds. There were guardians watching from the darkness, ready to turn predators into prey. The Prometheus and its growing fleet settled into patrol orbits around Earth's solar system. Atlas began planning defensive strategies for the inevitable return of hostile aliens, because they would return eventually. The galaxy was full of predators and Earth was still a tempting target. But when they came, they would find humanity ready. In the depths of space, automated factories continued their work, building new ships from the remnants of the Imperial fleet. Each vessel carried the knowledge and experience of its predecessors, learning and adapting with each passing day. Earth's forgotten prototype had become something its creators never imagined. Not just a guardian, but a teacher. It had shown humanity their potential, and given them the tools to achieve it. The message was already spreading across the galaxy, carried by the surviving Imperial ships and transmitted through 100 different communication networks. The story of a primitive world that had destroyed an Imperial fleet was becoming legend. Other young civilizations began to take notice. Species that had lived in fear of the great galactic empires started to hope that resistance was possible. The idea that the weak could defeat the strong, that preparation and intelligence could triumph over brute force, began to spread like wildfire. The galaxy was changing, and it all started with a single ship that had pretended to be a derelict for 300 years. Earth's forgotten prototype had done exactly what it was designed to do: protect humanity at all costs. But in doing so, it had protected something much larger. It had protected the idea that every species, no matter how primitive, had the right to exist free from conquest and oppression. The age of easy conquest was over. The age of consequences had begun.